I want to first acknowledge the strong media presence that's here, and thank you sincerely for your coverage. Your assistance in getting critical messages out to our community has been very, very important in keeping people safe and informed. It really does make a difference to us. The quality of coverage has been exceptional, and thank you for your empathy for our community. Your stories are telling the challenge extremely well of what we're dealing with. The weather hasn't eased off. In fact, it's going to build up again tonight, and we've still got a lot of activity throughout the region. Many people out of their homes, many people wondering when they're going to get back in their homes. But one thing we're very conscious of is that the rain event is going to continue tonight, and we have to think about how we're going to manage that. I'm going to hand over to our group controller, Alec Louverdis. You've got to know Alec well, and he will give you the details of the update, and then we're happy to take any questions. Kia ora.
Thank you, Rachel. Kia ora, everybody. Thank you very, very much. Happy to take any questions after I've given you an update, but I'll start off with the number of evacuations that we've had around the city. So as of today, we've had 411 that have been evacuated. 113 of those were as a result of potential landslides, and those occurred last night. As I've indicated previously, we have had USAR doing rapid assessments, and of those, they've done 168, and we've followed up with the City Council building inspectors, which has been a joint effort between Nelson City Council and the Tasman District Council to follow up. There were 45 houses that they needed to follow up. At this stage, the latest data is that we've got about 10 that are either red or yellow. And I know one of the questions is when we will be allowing those people back into their properties, especially those that are green. And I'd just like to give you a bit of an explanation as the decision that we made yesterday. So I indicated yesterday that it would be likely that we would be returning people to their houses yesterday. The weather event overtook us, and what we found was that notwithstanding the predictions that it was not going to be bad, what we found was that the rain sort of very, very much close mimicked the day before. So we were almost at the same peaks, and I think that justified the position in not allowing those people back, because we just weren't too sure. And we were talking about an extreme event. We have that heavy rainfall coming in from about 5 o'clock tonight. Heavy rainfall is expected to run from that 5 o'clock till about 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. We're expecting another 130 millimeters. One thing that we have appreciated is that weather events don't behave as the models. They haven't behaved over the last 2 days as we would have expected, and I'm very, very wary of relying 100% on the information that we're getting, not because of the people giving it, but purely because it's a weather event. One of the things that we are looking at in terms of our decision making is that we need to look and protect our resources. We only do have a finite number of resources. We are requesting a number of resources from outside the region. You can imagine it's not going to be quick to get them here. But one of our rationales, notwithstanding yesterday, was the storm event that overtook us, potentially tonight again, was the potential for allowing people back into their houses and then having to get them out again where we don't have those resources. So that's the update in terms of the number of evacuations. We are still under a red weather warning, which, as you know, is the highest alert level that we have, and we're very cognizant of what that means. Civil Defence issued a warning earlier today, noting that along with the high tide at about 2:51 p.m. that there would be a 3-meter swell. That has the word swell has been an incorrect use of a word, and it is it's not I think we used the word, just bear with me, 3-meter waves, but it is a 3-meter swell. And we've clarified that, and at this stage, that 3-meter swell has got no concerns for us, either for the high tide or that swell. because it will fall outside the window of the heavy rainfall. So that covers the evacuations. In terms of other issues, I think, and I will just link it in terms of the key messages. Yesterday, the key message was please stay off the road, work from home if you could, and that worked brilliantly. We found today the key messages we were giving was exactly the same, but our roads were absolutely chocker. I really have to make a plea. Rocks Road, State Highway 6 will be closed for the foreseeable future. We are unsure at this stage whether it will be one lane open and when that will be, but we have to take into account that and realize that it may be closed for the foreseeable future. So I really have to stress to everybody, if you don't need to be on the road, please heed that and work from home. St. John have advised us that they were stuck in traffic for an hour and a half. Luckily, the person in the ambulance wasn't critical, but that just shows you with one access route, police, fire, FENS, and St. John, and as well as staff that are reacting and trying to do their job, it creates a problem for us. Because we have those evacuation areas, we've got cordons in place. We do ask people to respect those cordons. They are manned by the police, by the Defence Force, and I make a plea to everybody to respect those cordons. We have received overnight, as I said, we are receiving many slips in the area, and they'll be coming too numerous to count. But we have realized, unfortunately, that our source from our Maitai Dam, one of our raw water feed lines, has been damaged. We understand that is substantial. There is no way that we can actually get in to assess that accurately, let alone effect a repair, especially when everything is so dangerous and there's a risk to inspectors and crews. So I think we will not have that raw feed line for a long time. However, we do have a duplicate pipeline, and we installed that several years back in anticipation of exactly this. That is in operation. We understand a large portion of the Maitai road has been washed away. Our Maitai duplication line is buried in the road, but at this stage all indications are that it is not compromised. I'm leading up to advising that our water is safe to drink. It is still being delivered to our water treatment plant, and it is safe to drink, so you have no problems there. There was some concern earlier this morning about the power cuts, and I realize Etowai received power cuts, but I was more concerned about power cuts to our water treatment plant and to our pump stations. But I understand that I can advise that electrical supply has been restored to all our essential infrastructure. So our pump stations are working, water is being delivered to our water treatment plant, it is safe to drink, but our raw water pipeline from the Maitai has been severely compromised. I learnt about half an hour ago that there are also several slips on the Roding raw water pipeline, but at this stage the pipeline is certainly not compromised, and we are still receiving water from our Roding reservoir. So all things equal, and on balance, I think we're in a good space. We are busy looking at planning for the next 24 hours, in particular what's going to happen from about 5 p.m. tonight, when we are getting the heavy rainfall again. We will be taking a prudent approach, and I'll make no excuse for that. I would rather we protect the property and lives of people as opposed to allowing people back, and I cannot unfortunately guarantee that people will be in their houses again today. We have to finish those rapid assessments as well as the assessments from the council, and unfortunately, while I did indicate that that would be done today, it won't be done today, not with the additional numbers that we have, which will mean in all probability that we will not be allowing people back into their houses today. But I give you my promise and I give you my undertaking that we are working as best we can under the conditions to protect those that are actually undertaking the inspections to ensure that we are with the sole intent of getting people back into their houses. But I really just need you to understand that I'm not making any decision lightly, and I understand the frustration, and I put myself in those people's shoes. I've had a garage that's been flooded once before, and that was pretty devastating. And if I have to think that my house was flooded, I know exactly how I would feel. So I'm not unsympathetic or unempathetic in terms of any decisions that we do make. So we do have an incident information centre being set up. It's been up and running since early this morning at the Trafalgar Centre. And that is a sort of a one-stop shop where those that have been evacuated can go in, have a shoulder to cry on, ask questions. They may not get the answers, but it's a face. We have a number of groups there that will allow questions either to be answered, or we will be getting back to those people. That will continue to run for the foreseeable future. We do realise that there are houses that will be red stickered, and that we need to do a wraparound services for those that may not ever go back into their houses again. And we understand the trauma of that, and we're not unsympathetic, and we need to just treat that with the appropriate sympathy that it requires. Our welfare centre is up and operating at the Saxons Stadium. That is operating well, and if people need once again to go and have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, get a hot meal, maybe sleep down for the night, that's your place to go to. There are people on standby to provide the necessary at that location. We do prefer, if you do have to go, that you go family and friends first, but certainly the Saxon Stadium is really there with open arms to invite anybody. I think that's about it, so I'm happy to answer any questions.
Over 400 people officially evacuated.
That's 400 properties. There could be a lot more people.
And we're hearing, though, people are choosing to leave on their own accord. Do you have any estimate of how many people are displaced within Nelson today?
So we don't, but I think if we make an estimate, assuming there's 2 or 3 people, sometimes 4, so on average 3, you can do the maths. 3 4s are 12, about 1,200 people that would be potentially displaced from their homes.
What about landslides? We're seeing them all over the place. Do you have an estimate of how many have faced?
Oh, look, we went for a drive yesterday with the worship and the Minister of Civil Defence, and I was I'm the Group Manager Infrastructure for the Nelson City Council, and the damage that I saw in Nelson was heartbreaking. I think that we're years away from a recovery, and the point was that as we were driving, there were slips falling everywhere, and to be honest, I don't know what that assessment will be. We're still in the response mode. We will have to assess that, and that'll be part of the recovery, and I just don't know at the moment.
Jessa, I think it's going to be incredibly tough, and that's something that I said yesterday. This isn't a year of recovery, this is years of recovery. And when I went down to the Trafalgar Centre earlier this morning just to talk to people who were there, I met one of my neighbours who lives one street away, a lovely couple, and they've been evacuated at 4 a.m. last night. I'm living one street away, and that's the side of the Grampians. I can't see that slip from where I am. So there will be many that we can't see at the moment, as well as the ones that Alec that we saw yesterday, and it's quite devastating. I know I haven't been as far as Cable Bay or Glendowen yet. There are parts of the city I haven't been able to get to, but it really does. It's dramatic, and and I look for Alec and myself. We've spent the last 15 years working together to build the city and to do some fantastic things in it. And you look at some of the projects that you've worked on and you pass them and they've just been destroyed. So as well as people's homes. And I want to just note that it's not just council's property here and our civic infrastructure that's been impacted. It's people's homes, and it's going to be years of recovery for individuals, for families as they work through repairing damage on their property. And as we said, for some, they're not going to be able to go back to their homes, and so it's a very tough situation.
I guess everywhere. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and I just we've had an incredible wet period leading up to this. So the damage that we've seen is on top of a very wet period, we will need to wait for a prolonged period to actually understand the full effect of what we've seen when things settle down. Our land, especially the steep slopes, will be continuing to move for weeks, and we won't understand the effect of that until we actually get some good weather to allow that to be assessed.
It has been, I guess, everywhere you go, it sort of just looks like much of it is just slipping away. And I guess, does that speak to the sheer amount of water that is?
As I've said, I was in a meeting with the two mayors, and I was trying to convince them. Well, I had my argument in terms of why we weren't going to declare, and in that 15 minutes that I was speaking to them, things went from bad to worse to unbelievable. And I have never seen the Maitai River, or any river for that matter, react within a 30-minute period. We went from an annual flood to something between an 80 and 100-year flood within about 35 minutes. I've never seen that. There is nothing that anybody would have been able to do or predict. So that water is not just in the rivers, that is in the catchments, and that is exactly what you see in rolling down, and you'll see the effect of that for weeks.
What can you tell us about the people in the Maitai Valley campgrounds or up that area that have been stranded for the last couple of days?
So we've been in contact with the Maitai camp, and as of yesterday, we had made the decision in consultation with them that they could stay there. They're on high ground. If they weren't affected by the rain on the first day, then it's pretty safe that they would be okay. We were then looked at tasking to bring in them some food, but we needed to bring in the Defence Force, because only Unimogs can traverse that, and even they have very strict conditions under which this isn't a wartime situation, but they also need to protect their own equipment and their lives. The latest, though, is that some of them have wanting to come out, so we've brought them out, and those that are wishing to stay, because they still have their accommodation, they have everything they need up there. We will be in that action of bringing people out, take food and water into them.
And what about a group? We've heard a group of students were stranded at Mount Richmond for the last couple of days. Do you know anything about that?
So I have heard about that. It hasn't been brought to my attention that there's any danger in terms of that, because we would have heard from the Department of Conservation. So at this time, that's all I can say in terms of that.
What do you say to people tonight who are going to sleep under a red rain warning, the rain pelting down, and they've seen all these slips come down around them? That's not an easy night for many people.
No, I think the key message is, and one of the things that we've been saying, that we are ready, we are mobilised. If we need to evacuate you, you will hear from us. You will hear somebody banging on your door, and you will be asked to leave. I'll just have a segue. If we do that, we ask you please to comply. It is not a request; it is an instruction. However, anybody who wishes to self-evacuate because they are feeling nervous, please do so. Please go to friends or family, or to our Saxon Stadium, where you will be looked after. And look, if you're on a slope, be aware, be vigilant, and if in doubt, evacuate. Or let us know so that we can evaluate whether it's just you or a wider slip or a wider issue that we need to issue a further evacuation.
What about outside of Nelson? We're seeing pictures come in from the Marlborough Sounds, from the Whangamoas. of just roads absolutely destroyed there as well.
Yes, I do need to say we're a joint Nelson Tasman civil defence group. Our initial focus has always been on Golden Bay, but that switched very, very quickly. I can say that we're in touch with our Golden Bay local controller, and look, they're dealing with a lot of landslips. They're dealing with a lot of road flooding, surfacing, but at this moment in time, a lot of that will drain away, and they are quite resilient out there. There's nothing that they seem to be worried about. And to be honest, when we look at the amount of rain that they are, and they're also going to get some more rain, there's nothing there at this moment in time that makes us continue to worry about them. However, we are a joint group, and if we have to fight two battles at once, we will.
I think just in terms of Marlborough, Alec,
Yes.
we did get an update today at our 12 o'clock multi-agency briefing to say, yes, there has been damage across in Marlborough. I've been on a call to a property owner in the Marlborough Sounds this morning, and they've suffered severe damage. So this is very much a te tauihu impact at the moment. We're conscious that other parts of New Zealand are also being impacted, Taranaki, Northland. So New Zealand is really getting hammered with this rain event. I think in terms of the rain event, and I acknowledge we're in Richmond at the moment at the Emergency Operations Centre, the degree of intensity and change is really localised, and what I've noticed is I've been coming backwards and forwards just to address the issues, because we are very hands-on at the moment, is that the intensity of rain within Nelson City is actually quite a bit stronger than what you'll have even, a few kilometres away here. And so those impacts have come down just so quickly and so intensely that's why we're seeing those hillsides completely scarred out, even where we've got areas that have got quite dense bush on them.
I guess, we talk about these as like, 1 in 100 year events and whatnot, but they're happening more and more and more. I guess, is that something in the future, taking years to recover? Is this sort of event need to be accounted in the recovery?
I think
answer that one.
Yeah, look, I think that's the question. Look, I think that mayors of New Zealand at the moment have been really clear that we have got some challenges for our communities. We're seeing more intense rainfall events. We're seeing hotter summers. We're seeing longer droughts, and we're starting to see weather patterns really changing. We know that we have climate change on our doorstep, if not here already. And if we work with when I'm talking with ministers, talking with our government partners, we know that climate change has to be part of our thinking right now in terms of our planning for the future. Resilience is going to be critical. This community has really shown it understands resilience. I mean, we have had, as you know, it's felt like a series of emergency events. We've had cyclones, we've had floods, we've had fires, we've had slips, and now we're back round to slips and floods again. The great thing is that actually it is about communities understanding those issues, making sure that you have that you take these issues seriously. But right now we're in the dealing with an event. We're still in a state of emergency, and our focus is really on keeping people and property safe. Our community has done everything they should. They've been responsive, they've looked after each other, and now just comes the challenging part of actually being able to move through this phase and start to get people back into their homes. And as Alec has said, look, the teams are moving as fast as they can. They're acutely aware of how distressing it will be for people. For many of our teams, they will have close friends and family members who have been evacuated from their own home. We're a close community.
How many have you got at Sexton Stadium, and what's the capacity?
Oh, we can take, I think, several hundred at Sexton Stadium, but the capacity, I think, is probably about 10 at the moment. So there's a number of people, which just goes to show that, if you're looking at potentially 1,200 people, they've gone to friends and family, which is good.
What's the biggest risk at the moment? Is it the Mai Tai and that rising overnight, or is it the landslides?
I think it's a combination of both. I think what we found over the last 2 days is that weather forecasts and the best predictions are exactly that, they're predictions. And we've been caught out on both days, and we won't be caught out again. So we will be taking a cautionary approach. But I think that will be where the biggest damage happens. But the slips, everything is so wet that things are just going I think it's both, and the problem is where the slips are going, it's around residential properties. And so there's a risk, to be honest, I think there's a risk everywhere.
Have you been impressed with how the communities rallied together, just helping? Even today I watched some people trying to clear the pathway of one of the creeks in Atawhai. You know, are you seeing things like that?
Yes, and maybe I'll let the mayor comment on this. I mean, when we went out yesterday, we went out to Devonish Place, and I guess that's the image that I have in my head about the total devastation. But there was a mother and a son who were walking down on the side of the road, and the mayor stopped and chatted to them with the minister. And I think I'll let the minister, I'll let Rachel finish the story, because it epitomises exactly what our community is all about.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And Kirsty, I listened to your broadcast a bit earlier, and I could just imagine myself being there. You know, you just had neighbours, you know, sorting out what they could sort out. The family that we met were just incredibly grateful that they had a warm, dry house to be in, and they were saying, well, we're lucky, we're the lucky ones. You saw the devastation, but they were going, okay, we've got a warm, dry house, and so we'll make our way through this. You know, when I was down at Saxton earlier, a couple came in the door and I greeted them as they came in. They were, you know, they were warm and friendly, but you could see that they were in shock. They had a slip go through their house last night. They were evacuated at 4 a.m. and they were walking in, you know, with the knowledge in their heads saying, well, I think our house is now red-stickered. But they were philosophical. They said, you know, we're here, we want some support. And actually, really what they wanted was a cup of tea and someone to talk to.
So we're not surprised. No. Communities are very resilient, and they help each other.
Just one more from me. I guess, is there any concerns with Rocks Road closed? You know, there's only really one way in, isn't there?
That is a major concern. And look, Nelson, we've always realised that we have two arterials, lifelines. One is State Highway and the other is Waimea Road, and when one goes down, we're putting all the traffic and doubling it on the others. That's why it's so important to stress, please do not be on the roads if you do not have to. Ideally, we would like Rocks Road to be open. That landslip that came down is significant. As I've said, you can truly only really appreciate and know what you need to do when things have quietened down. It is a state highway. It's managed by Waka Kotahi, and at the moment they will need to assess the risk whether they can indeed open that or not. But the information that we have at this moment, either way, it will be a long, considerable time before we even begin to scratch the surface, if I could say.
If I could just add, I want to acknowledge and thank our transport operators. We've got heavy vehicles moving through residential streets. In fact, sort of down at the bottom of my corner is now turned into the state highway route. We've got logging trucks coming around, you know, basically a, you know, reasonably tight corner. I just really want to acknowledge those transport operators. They're doing a fantastic job under trying conditions, and that's one of the reasons why we want to make sure that there's as little traffic as possible on the road. We do have ships coming into the port that are going to need to be loaded, and we just want to free up that that roadway, compromised as it is in terms of the space to operate for that, those heavy vehicles to get through, for our emergency services to get through, and for our buses to continue to operate for people that have to get to work.
And I do understand that there are, wherever you drive around these days, there are cones everywhere. And one of the reasons that you see all those cones are exactly that we're trying to increase and improve our infrastructure so that we can actually handle a large weather events. And you know, them's the breaks. We're busy doing the work, and we get this happening to us. And I realise it's also added up to the woes of Waimea Road, that we're down to one road. But you know, there's nothing that we can do about that. And I just ask for everybody's patience and indulgence. We really are trying to do the work to improve the lives of everybody, not to make it worse.
You mentioned at the start, Alec, about getting more resources in. Can you just expand on that? What are you looking for?
So we're looking, the EOC, the Emergency Operating Centre, is a hungry machine in terms of resources. I don't know if you've ever been into an EOC. It's a well-oiled machine, but it runs on people. And when an event goes for a long period of time and people do 12-hour shifts, which is typically what we're doing at the moment, 12 to 13-hour shifts, you get exhausted and you think you can do it, but after about 3 or 4 days, you realize that you need a break. And when you've only got limited resources, you need to turn that over. And you can only do that for a certain amount of period of time before you exhaust those resources, and we have to get those resources. So it's ironic. Our neighbours and our cousins on the West Coast were expected to bear the brunt of this, and ironically, they are the ones that are offering us resources now. They're also going to be receiving more heavy rain next week, and it may be that we have to send those resources back. But that's how we operate. We move resources. We've got resources from Christchurch. I need to give a punt out to NEMA, our National Emergency Management. They have been absolutely fantastic. They are securing people from Auckland, from around the country. The Minister has been fantastic. It's at times like these when everybody pulls together. But we are limited by our resources and our ability to cope.
And you still expect to be in this sort of state tomorrow?
Oh, absolutely. I think we will have the EOC up and running at least till Monday or Tuesday, but we're planning for till next Sunday. Because the response isn't over yet. But what we are doing is we're planning for our recovery. We do that virtually from day one. And we're putting measures in place to get that undertaken, but the response is far from over. Usually they're short, sharp and sweet, but
Not this one.
not this one.
No. All right, we've finished with questions. So, look, just thank you very much to all of you. It's hard work covering an event like this, and I know that getting about the city, as I said, has been challenging. I'm sure that you will have been wanting to see some of the damage up close, and we're just at the moment not in a position to be able to move those cordons. We've got to be very respectful of people's homes, and as we work through and we get the assessments done and we're able to have that engagement with people so that they know the state of their homes, then we'll be able to do a little bit more with you as media. But I just want to thank you very, very much for your coverage, as I said, and particularly for the empathetic way that you're approaching the situation, because as much as we are a positive, capable, resilient community, there are a lot of people hurting out there right now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Make sure yourself.